warm welcome to a Pod Full of Saints on Wednesday, the 30th of August 2023, episode 7 for the season. So we're in full swing now, so there'll be no mistakes at all on this one. But already I can see Lee Wood praying.
Yes, tired, hungover. Jacob and I were out being drunk and debaucherous last night, so this is going to be a struggle, as it always is for anyone who watches it. But there we go.
Jake Ellacott, that'd be. Were you being drunken and debaucherous with Lee Wood, or were other people around?
Other people were there, so it wasn't just Lee Wood who's a bad influence. But hello everyone.
And that was because of the wedding of Colin Toms and Leslie. So congratulations to them. Right, two matches to look back on. Due to unforeseen circumstances, neither of you two were able to get to Taunton. Couldn't be bothered is another phrase, but we shan't use that one. As you would have seen from the highlights, you missed a cracker. It was a funny old game, actually. Most exciting thing, I think, was the roll of thunder just as teams were kicking off. I've seen worse games, plenty of worse games, seen a lot of better games as well. It just seemed to be a nothing game. I know we came back twice from behind to get level, so it sounds exciting, but it wasn't like that at all. Taunton deserved a victory. They had by far the greater number of chances. We only had 2 chances on target, so we can't complain until we start creating more. This is going to be an ongoing theme. But I think the thing that really struck me was how open we are at the back. We've seen it in a few games already. When teams go forward, they are finding so much space. And I look at the first goal that Taunton got. How Ross Stern claims it, I don't know, but apparently the ball touched him on his way into a net after Michael Johnson dropped across. Ross Stern may have put an arm up and put Michael off, just grabbed him, but it didn't look that strong. But Michael dropped the ball, so it must have been strong. But even there's so much space for their players in our penalty area, and yet we've got all 11 players back there. In a photo I've seen, I've got 4 players to the left of the goalpost as we look at it, marking no one, just marking space. So why not stick 2 or 3 of them up front, get 3 or 4 of their players out of our penalty area, then it's easier to mark them tightly. And I don't know what school of coaching it is that says chuck all 11 players back at every set piece and every corner, but it's the most negative school of thought I've ever heard of. Come on, let's be more adventurous. Put the pressure on the other side. Don't soak it onto us all the time. But anyway, we came back. First goal looked offside, Rasulu, but it wasn't. He timed his run perfectly, and the right back kept him onside, and a nice finish too. And Mitchell Weiss, good piece of opportunism to get his second goal of the season as well. And those bits were encouraging, but overall, no, it was the right team that won. I think there's only about 15 supporters there, but what have you two heard about it, and what do you make of the highlights?
Blimey. I mean, are you done, Tavs? Is it? Was that it, mate? I mean, Jake, I don't know about you, mate, but I'm not entirely sure how much you can get out of watching the highlights because, you know, it's about camera angles and all that sort of thing. You don't really appreciate the tempo of the game. It looked quite frantic, if anything else, when, you know, going by the video. I'm hoping the video doesn't really show the fact that MJ had another clanger in goal. I'm hoping the highlights don't really portray the fact that we, you know, weren't as attacking as what we should be. You know, what? Yes, okay, we couldn't be bothered to go to Taunton because it was a long way and there were train strikes and stuff like that. And quite frankly, I've got better things to do with my Saturday afternoons. But, you know, what can you get out of that? Seriously, I mean, it was a good finish by Rasulu. I thought he took his goal superbly well. But other than that, it just looked a bit mundane, a little bit dry at times. And you can't really... We will get on to Bath shortly, but I think there's something that needs to be changed in terms of the way we attack these teams now, because, you know, the passive playing through the phases just isn't working at the minute.
What have you picked up from the game, Jake?
I listened to it via Mix 92.6, the artist formerly known as Verulam station. And yeah, it was just one of those games that I think we talked about it before, haven't we? That actually we've talked about it a lot this season. Those games where we start well and we start on the front foot and we cause teams trouble early on, we've won those games this season, haven't we? I know it's only 2 of them, but it's those games we look dangerous going forward. This felt like another game listening to it that we were a little bit passive again, and I don't know what's going on with that. And I think, Nobby's sort of hinting that in his interviews at the moment, and I can't explain why we're passive because, I'm sure Nobby is before the game telling the boys what they need to do and start on the front foot, etc. But it's just those games just not working at the moment. And when you allow a team like Taunton to get on the front foot, they're going to create opportunities, aren't they? We know they've got a good home record during the last season and a half. It's not bad at all. Pitch wasn't great. But we saw last season down at Taunton, it was a bit of a battle to get those 3 points, and it was a tight game, but it was a battle, and we went there with some positivity. Just felt like we didn't really have that on Saturday for whatever reason, and that's just real disappointing because we all talked about it, didn't we? We all said over the bank holiday weekend, Taunton's the sort of game that we should be looking for from 3 points from, and that was just to hear. I know we lost it in the 99th minute, etc., 10 men because of an injury, but it's just the general vibe around the game just wasn't great again.
We'll come on to the injury in a second, but the pitch fair, it actually looked superb from the side, Jake. There were 2 downpours in the 3/4 of an hour before kickoff, but it didn't seem to harm it. But just before kickoff, the groundsman was going around, he had a wheelbarrow and a spade, and he was putting soil in bits of it. But it really did look superb. I had a quick word with MJ before kickoff. He said it was cutting up already then. And one of the players later in the game spoke to him. He said it's a nothing game, but he said the pitch it is cutting up, but it did look good from the side. But obviously it was difficult for the players. And you're right about that injury. George Hoddle come on 83, 84 minutes, something like that. Within 4 minutes, he was taken out by a tackle by was it Lee Lucas? It was shocking. Referee Neil Pratt played on. He played the advantage. Do we give him credit for that? No, because we went and screwed it up as usual. And when he caught, but having let it go, the chance of him getting a red card out were unlikely. And he went back and he booked Lee Lucas. You see the highlights and the tackle. It's one of the worst you will see. It should have been a straight red. Whether he did it then, they called him back later. And that George Hoddle didn't suffer a broken leg is a miracle. It's a dreadful. But what it meant was we'd made our 3 subs and we were down to 10 men for the last 2 minutes plus just over 10 minutes of added time. Whereas they should have been down to 10 men. We would have still been down to 10 because George were off the pitch. But that might have given us a bit of encouragement, and we might have thought of actually going up and have a look at the halfway line and think about going over it. But as it was, we lost to that goal, as you say, deep into added time. A lovely little flick by Ross Stern. Beautiful goal.
Tabs, was it that sort of game? Because we spoke to a couple of fellas who actually went down to the game, and Taunton definitely had. It wasn't their sole tactic, and it wasn't their driving tactic, but it was a tactic to leave a bit in on us. Go in, maybe be a bit tougher, not dirty. I don't want to use that word, but certainly sort of stronger in the tackle. Shall we say?
I didn't pick up on that at all. Their only other booking was captain Nick Grimes, who also got the second goal. But no, I didn't pick up on them being a overly physical side. Seemed a lot worse. No, I didn't have any problems with that really. Then again, I wasn't on the receiving end of the challenges, Lee.
This is very true.
And probably never will be.
Oh, I don't know, mate. I'm sure there's a few people who want to lay one on your tab. Don't worry about that, mate.
Yeah, won't do it in the penalty area. Right? What else can we say about it? Nobby made 3 changes for the game, I think, and it still didn't bring the desired result. A couple of goals is promising, but it's only because we took all of our chances. We only had 1 shot on target the week before. But carry on like this, we're going to be in big trouble soon. We've got to be a lot more creative. And it wasn't a hint of it changing much on Saturday, really. Had we got a point, we'd have all been happy. But really, I think Taunton did deserve the victory, which I don't think any of us predicted, of course, because we're a lot more positive than that.
Too positive now.
Yeah, I know. Let's pack it in, boys, shall we?
Yeah.
Right, we'll move on quickly from that one. There's probably other things we could say from it. We had a Somerset double header, of course, Bank Holiday Monday. You two were there, so I'll let you two go on this one. 2-0 defeat to Bath City. We'd won the 5 previous games against them, and we're all confident it was going to be 6. It didn't quite pan out like that, did it?
No, not really at all. Yeah, it was I don't know how to describe the game, mate. It's just we had so much of the ball, didn't we? It's unbelievable how much of the ball we had, but we just didn't have that sort of exciting anything really in the final third, did we? Again, it was all, I said it earlier, passive. Even when chasing the game, it's all just a bit. There's not much going on here in the final third. And that's the real issue for me. Is the final third. The 2 goals, not great goals to concede, but one's a penalty that are we sure about? I don't know. Second one's an own goal. You can't really legislate. The only thing for that is Bath could get a dangerous ball into the box. We didn't really do that. That's probably the only difference. But, it's the final third for me. It's defensively, it wasn't great, but the final third, it's nothing there. No cutting incision at all. We had 1 or 2 shots on target. We had a couple hacked off the line, didn't we? Or hacked in the goal mouth away. But other than that, there just wasn't much to write home about at all, again.
Any better where you were, Lee?
Well, I was probably 2 points better off, if that makes any sense at all. But the thing is, though, we started off how we wanted to. We kept possession. We dictate the game in terms of our tempo. Listen, Dave, you and I have often sort of differed in opinion in so much that I want results and you want performance. I think you're in the minority, but I quite enjoy the way we play the passing game sometimes. But I think, alluding to sort of Jake's point, there's no end product. We could have been playing for 9,090 minutes and we probably still wouldn't have scored a goal. Yeah, there's just no... I'll tell you, there was a word that Nobby used in his post-match, desire. There's just no desire. It's all very pretty on the eyes, passing backwards and forwards, and, there's a little bit of movement. But there's just no cutting edge. And the thing is, we are going to be a massive, massive issue because what other plan B is there? Nobby is adamant. He's staunch in his defence of the way he wants to play this game. And that's no problem if it comes off. And at the minute, it's not coming off. Look, and I'll tell you how bad it is, right? There's a lot of people who come to City for the atmosphere. They come for the vibe. They're not as invested in the productivity of the game of football and the team and all of that. Second half, even some of them were bemoaning the quality of what they were seeing. And okay, you can have a few more beers and have some more chicken on the terraces in the bright sunshine, but when you're getting humped on every single home game in the middle of November, when it's pissing down with rain, I think you'll see a massive drop in attitude in terms of how many people want to come and watch this. Because at the minute, what we're getting served up, mate, it's not finger licking good by any stretch.
Oh, very good, Lee. Very good. It's quite foul, really, isn't it? The pleasing on the eye, I don't see it. I don't see the ball going across the defence, back to the goalkeeper, midfielder. Oh, I better not turn around and look at goal. I'll go back to the centre half again. In the first half at Taunton, we put 25 passes back to Michael Johnson. I mean, how ridiculous is that? What does that tell us? As far as I know, he's not Cristiano Ronaldo. He's goalkeeper. He's got 2 hands. He's there to save a ball. He's not there to open up defences. It is absolute nonsense. We overdo it. The passing game's fine. If you go forward and do it with a bit of speed, we are so pedestrian. Torquay knew what was coming. They just shut us out second half. Bath defended in depth in the second half. 2 goals to the good. Well, a dubious penalty, or at least a harsh one, should we say, and an own goal. I mean, it's the sort of things go against you when you're in the position we're in at the moment. Bath got the breaks in that respect. But you just felt they played within themselves. Had they needed to step it up, they're on a good run. They probably could have done. You didn't feel we had anywhere to go. We have no plan B. We go across, backwards, sideways, and very little thrust forward. And it's creating. We don't create sustained pressure. So if a side breaks one of our attacks down, they know they can reorganise and whatnot, because we're not going to be back up for down that end of the pitch again for a little while. And so we're making it easy for opposition sides. So the passing football, I'll go along with it. I agree with it, but it's got to be done at a better tempo, and it's got to be done with the intention of hurting the opposition, not just keeping the ball.
So here's a question. This is probably for both of you. Actually, I had a bit of a debate with someone who's been watching the Saints a lot longer than I on Monday, he said we're just a bad team. We're a bad side. You know, these players aren't good enough. And I question that, because we've all been there when it's been bad. We've had some terrible players, absolute shocking. I don't believe these players are bad players. I absolutely do not. I don't believe we're a particularly bad team. I agree we're not playing particularly well. I think we can play a lot better. We need to play a lot better. But I don't believe we're a bad side. And is it a case for you guys where you think it will come good? Is there perseverance to be had? How much time do we give this project of Nobby Ball now? You know, because as much as it's, you know, I think the owners are quite good in so much they don't react, you know, off like a whim. You know, they try and make measured decisions when it comes to the management and players. Where do we go from here, fellas?
I'll let you go first now, Jake, because that's a good time. I'll bring in an email I've had from someone. So you can go first, Jake. I'll be a good side or I'll be a bad side. We don't know.
I think we're a team that's still finding its way, but I think the worrying thing for me is just how I don't want to say negative, but Nobby is negative in his post matches in the last couple of games. To be honest, he's being brutally honest, and I appreciate that, and I do appreciate that he's being honest with the supporters. I think that's the worry for me is he's built this team. It's his team. He's put together over the summer, and we're only 2.5, 3 weeks in. It's not even the end of August yet, and we're already sort of lamenting what's going on. He's not happy with what's going on, and is he already thinking about, have we got to do a rebuild in the next couple of weeks? If so, that's a lot of rebuild, because this team he's put together, there's a lot of players he's brought in over the summer, and it's just not working at the minute. The next few weeks are going to be crucial. I think there's comparisons to last season, isn't there? You know, Ian didn't have a great start, chugged along, and it came to the FA Cup, fell out of that, and then it was time for him to go, wasn't it? And I think, you know, we've got the FA Cup coming in soon. We've had a tough start. We've got some more winnable games coming up potentially. So the next few weeks, I think, could be pretty pivotal in how we do this. But I think you guys sort of hinted at it. There's no alternative plan at the minute, is there, going forward? For me, it's the going forward bit. It's defence. It's not great, but if we score goals, I don't mind that. From, you know, Nobby's type of football, I always expected us to concede a few goals. You know, it's not going to be amazing defensively, but going forward, there's no alternative. And even when you've got Sean Jeffers on the bench, bringing him on as an alternative, the style of football just isn't suiting him at all. They're not getting the ball to him. Bath, last 20 minutes he came on, he was just totally isolated, wasn't he? I mean, did he even touch the ball? I actually can't think of him having a touch a ball in anger. So it's all just very negative at the moment, unfortunately.
Defensively, I think it's one of the most suspect City defensive we've seen for a little while. That really does need tightening up. You mentioned Ian Anderson's record there. Well, he got sacked after 9 games. He had 12 points. Nobody's struggling to reach out at the moment. Needs a couple of wins desperately. And talking of wins, we've got 3 games for the FA Cup against 3 sides from Kent. The most winnable one looks like Dover, but he probably needs to win 2 of them if he can. If don't win any of those, and the writing's on the wall for Nobby, I'm afraid. I hope not. Really want to see him make a success.
Really?
But I think, he's relying on the FA Cup then, Lee. And that's dodgy. Of course we want to see him successful. But he can't afford this bad run to continue, as we know. Is it a good side or not? I don't know. I think, as I said the other week, I think the way we play this football is stifling them. So we're not seeing the best of these players. Ian sent me a message here. It says, some good players there, but they don't seem to be buying into what Nobby wants, which is passing football. Got to move the ball quicker, but I thought the grass on Saturday was too long and the pitch was too slow for that. But, you know, it's touching on what we say. Do it with more speed, more passion. Because teams can cancel us out when we're going at this pedestrian pace.
If you look at how we opened the Havant game, you know, for the first 20, 25 minutes, I thought we were absolutely fantastic, and certainly the best I've seen this season. I mean, I think Nobby's going to get as much time as he needs, simply because it's a new project. You know, he's not going to be. This is not going to be like an overnight thing. I think the issue that we have is that people are quite expectant from our antics for last season. You know, playoffs and all of that sort of thing, and he came in and revolutionised the way we played literally overnight. But this is a whole different aspect now of his management skill, because he's got his own players, and he is a student of the game in so much that he wants it to play in its purest form, and there's nothing wrong with that. I just think whether this level and this standard, and whether he can attract the players to do that at St Albans City, is another thing entirely. He speaks well, honestly, in his post-match. You can see his frustration as well, can't you? That's the one thing that's evident. The questions are nondescript because there are no real questions to it. They're loaded, if nothing better. But the thing is, I don't think we are a bad side, and I don't know how much time he's going to get. I hope it's a bit longer than the cup game, but results matter. There's a league structure for a reason, right? So we've got to get results, and I think he's got to be looking at his tactics and the way, maybe a 2 up top or something, because the way we're playing at the minute isn't the way forward.
Glad you think he's good at the interviews, Lee. It's not very long.
Well, it's better than what he was, mate. That's what I meant. He's a bit more honest about it.
Yeah.
I think, Dave, on that email, sorry, I think fair. I think, but then, to be honest, like, I thought first half especially, we did actually get into positions, especially down the right and left in wide areas, but the final ball was not there. Or, I mean, the insistence on the wide players to cut inside instead of driving towards the byline was absolutely doing my head in, frankly. And I think it was doing a lot of supporters' heads in as well. Like, every time, cut inside, either blocked or sails past the back post. It doesn't matter. It's just terrible, frankly, to be honest. And we need to have a bit more cutting incision in the final third. And I think, the style of football that can allow that, but then are the players actually up to getting that final ball in? Like I said earlier, we saw a Bath. They got one ball in, came to an own goal. Johnson probably is grabbing that, but it's into a dangerous area, isn't it, in the box? And it causing problems. And that's just what we didn't have, unfortunately.
Of course, the next thing is, we saw it for the last quarter of an hour on Monday, rather, sorry. Mitchell Weiss and Sean Jeffers playing together. Now, I really think for the next 5 or 6 games, Nobby's got to go for it. He's got to go for those two together, see if he can get the best out of them, like Ian Anderson did earlier in his reign, or earlier in their partnership, I should say, because he's got no other options up front. He's got nothing else at all. So go back. That was a tried, trusted, successful partnership, and it might mean he's got to change his style a bit, but he's going to have to, the way things are going.
He had the options, he's just not using them. Jeffers has been on the bench. He's been used, in my view, embarrassingly in the amount of minutes he's been allocated, being brought on with sort of 2-3 minutes to go. I think he deserves better than that. And if you're not going to play him, just don't play him. If you don't fancy him, he doesn't fit into your system, don't play him. Because I think Jeffers has something to add to this side. I honestly do. He's here for another season, unless he gets sold or wants to leave, whatever. But the thing is, you may as well utilise what you have here. Mitch up front is good, but he will only offer you so much. And you need something else now to partner and get him up with the line. Because the thing is, as Jake was saying there, the players are cutting in because there's no one in the box apart from Mitch. And there's 5 defenders there. And there's no one running on. They've got to cut inside because then it brings into the game the midfield runners. If you've got 2 in the box, it's a different story because then, it causes more options for us. But the thing is, look, we can go on about this. But the thing is, it's not good enough. Monday was just mundane. It was monotonous. It was slow. It was poor. And I genuinely think that if it continues to be dished up on a regular basis, fans will speak with their feet.
Well, we heard it from their mouths at the final whistle. There was booing quite a bit of it on Monday. Yeah. It could be heard all around the ground already. And we heard it at Yeovil. Sorry, Jack, we heard it at Yeovil during the game. Supporters were complaining. They're not happy with it at all. Sorry, Jack, off you go.
No. I think I was just going to sort of repeat what Lee said earlier. It's, regular fans, those of us that have been going for 10, 15, 20 years, we are frustrated. But actually noticeable on Monday was it was the newer fans that were being quite vocal in their annoyance at full time. It wasn't us. It was, it was the newer fans. It was those that haven't been going very long, or those that have used to success, if you want to say that, getting to a playoff final. those fans are becoming very frustrated, I think, and you can see it online as well. And I think that frustration is absolutely understandable. And for them as well, when they see, we talked about before, when they see someone like Sean Jeffers on the pitch, on the bench, sorry, again, that builds in that frustration because he is the star man. That is who they know. So when it's just building into a crescendo at the moment, I think it's almost, we sort of hinted it, didn't we, at the start of the season? This is almost a worst case scenario now for Nobby. It's building up to that anyway. Results not great. Players like Sean Jeffers on the bench, it really starting to worry those newer fans as well, because we've seen the ups and downs, haven't we? We're used to it. Whatever happens, like we said, this isn't the worst City team we've seen in the last 10 years.
No.
But
Yeah.
that is building, and crowds will suffer as a result, and fans will not be happy. And it is a results business at the end of the day, to use another cliche. I know Lee loves my cliches, but it is really building at the moment. And it's a real worry for Nobby. And I think that feeds into, you can tell he's feeling the pressure a little bit. And, I don't blame those supporters. They're allowed to have opinions. And when they see that on a Monday in front of a great crowd as well, really, really good crowd, it just feels like sort of a missed opportunity, doesn't it?
Do you think that, sorry, Tab, do you think that Nobby's backed himself into a corner with this absolute sort of stone-headedness of that, we are going to play like this, we must play like this. This is the way I want us to play, and we're going to persevere and see what happens. Because, I think you spoke about Sean there, right? Sean isn't even the best striker that I've seen in the last sort of, 15 years at City, but he's the best striker we have at the club right now. And he's a good striker and he's a good player. So the fact he isn't being utilised by the manager, it is causing a divide. It's causing a conflict that doesn't really need to happen, right? But look, the manager is the manager. He picks and chooses his players as and when, and that's what we have to go with. But it's only good when it's working, and this isn't working. So now he has to turn to Sean, try and fit him into the system, because ultimately we've seen this time and time again, fellas, where he will just change a game with one kick. All right, if he's being perceived by the coaching staff as lazy, fine. But I tell you what, there's better players that haven't got his goals, and by God, we need those at the minute.
You mentioned, I think it was you, Jake, about possible squad changes Nobby's talked about coming up in the future. But presumably you're going to change it and trying to keep the same style, but he's got to tweak it. He's got to make it more attack-minded, less reliant on backward passing, because the outcome's going to be the same. And you, Lee, mentioned something about substitutions earlier. Well, I've looked at our last 100 substitutions in the league. And
you're sad, man, David Tavener.
Another good bank holiday for Dave.
Bloody hell, mate. Rock and roll. Didn't
need this stat to prove it, Lee. And of those 100, 50 have come from the 73rd minute onward and not produced a single goal. The 50 before that, in the minutes before that, produced 8 goals. So if it hits you in the face, the earlier you make substitutions, you've got more chance of getting a goal from that substitute, if that's what he's on for. Of course, they're not all attacking substitutions, it should be said. Some of them just play out time and try and hang on desperately for a goalless ball. But it does hint at the earlier you get a player on, the more chance you've got in getting a goal. So Sean coming on, what is it, 3 times he's come on beyond 80 minutes so far this season? It's something like that. And it's not going to get you a goal.
When Nobby first came in, we talked about his willingness to make substitutions early, didn't we? And the impact they had on games. They weren't always winning combination. They weren't always scoring goals. But he made substitutions early, and he also wasn't afraid to make changes, with a starting 11 as well. And they worked, didn't they, really early on? And that's sort of disappeared now. Now, we talk about squad changes. I think we've heard rumours, at least Lee and Lee have, that there might be a forward player joining us this week, potentially. I don't know if that's a permanent or a loan. We've heard that. If that happens, great. But for me, even if that forward player is there, we've actually got to get the ball to them. And for me, on Bath on Saturday, we just weren't getting the balls towards our forwards, be that Mitchell Weiss, Sean Jeffers, whoever else plays up there. We've actually got to get the ball to them in a dangerous position in the box. And we just aren't for them at the minute.
This is going to be a massive thing for you, Dave. And I know you're not going to like it, but in a few weeks, the transfer window shuts for the league clubs. And then what happens is, once people's squads are settled, we can then look at going into the loan market again, as we did with the likes of McConnell and Cooper. So that could be an outlet for Nobby as well, to get that little bit. get a little bit of class in to help implement the way he wants to play. Because ultimately, the players at the minute, you know, they're not playing ball. You know, they're not doing either what they're told, or Nobby's not translating it in a way that's easy for them to understand. It's not good to watch. It honestly is not good to watch. So maybe that is an outlet. The loan market, we know that the coaching team are working hard because they've done it. You know, they are going to be doing it because that is their job. So hopefully that is another outlet for Nobby as well, just in case if the current squad does need refreshing up.
It is one way of doing it, of course, but it's also, as we know, just a short-term fix. When they're loaned up, all you've done is delay your problem. You haven't fixed your squad problem. Is it good management? I personally don't think it is. You've got to be able to spot a player and get him into your team properly. But that said, that's not having a go at Nobby, because the loan system now is used so much through the game, higher up than our level as well. That's how clubs work these days. And to me, it's just poor management because they're not good enough to collect the players they want in the first place.
And that said, though, Tavs, look what happened to Lancashire. You know, it was one of our own. We built him up, and then someone comes and snaps him up. The grass is always greener, and now he's coming. He's playing for Dorking now. I think I've seen. Is, you know, so it's full circle. But there's all well and good going out and establishing a core unit of players, you know, who are our own. But then there's always a better opportunity coming along, mate. You know, so it's not always that simple, is it?
Certainly not. But one of you mentioned earlier about the desire or passion of the players. Got an email from Flaps. Says, talking about Monday.
Flaps?
I can't tell you his name. John
Right.
Lapwood.
Right.
City were utterly pathetic in the first half. I got the impression Bath didn't ever really get out of second gear. No need. The opposition was too weak. Also, I didn't get any sense of spark or dynamic from City as a team. No real drive, which is what Nobby said. And Flaps finishes with, it's my first visit to the park this season. The removal of seats to the covered terrace looks pathetic. And also not where you want to sit on a wet day either. But he's picked up on, he won't have seen Nobby's interview, but he picked up on the thing Nobby said as well about lack of desire of the players. But does that come from the way we play? It's too pedestrian. Do you need to be a bit more attack and not gung-ho, but more pushing forward at speed to get the desire from us, but make it look like they're showing that desire?
But the desire comes from the top, right? The desire has to come from the manager, from up to a certain degree, obviously. I mean, we've all played football at various poor standards, but, you know, you've got to have your own drive as well. You can only be sort of told and guided by so much. It's up to the players in question. And Flaps is absolutely spot on in what he said. There is no gusto. There is no, you know, someone willing to go that extra mile. You spoke about earlier on, Tabs, about the players who are our players, our core players. And you can reel them off. You know, the players that are going to put in that tackle, who want to make that absolutely lung-bursting run. Mitch does it fantastically well. I think he's probably exception to the rule in that aspect, in terms of getting forward and wanting to make something happen in the final third. I think I've said it once, I'll say it again. I think we missed Banton. I think he could be utilised excessively. I think he could be, if he comes back fit, anywhere near the sort of standard that we know he's capable of, then he could be a massive plus for us. But again, we don't know the situation, how long he's out for. I think Hoddle, in the little time that he's been here, has been good. I think he's shown glimpses of facing the way, you know, just facing the way we play. So it's just that. I mean, we can go on about this, but I think, you know, it's probably time to cast our attention to Welling, and hopefully we can sort of get a positive result there.
I think one player as well that I think has not been mentioned at all lately, not just by us, is Kyran Wiltshire. I think he is a massive miss in midfield so far this season for me. I think the lack of bite and grit in there, I think, is a bit of an issue. And I think for me as well, we know he's out for a long time. It feels like we've not really replaced him, even if it's only temporarily, with someone similar to his style of play. I know Blackman does a lot of that work, but as we've seen already this season, Blackman isn't always available, or he's just not able to do the job. So I think for me, Kyran is a big miss.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're not seeing the best of Ryan Blackman at the moment. He hasn't matched last season's performance yet. I thought Monday was his poorest game actually, but we know what we can get out of him, and he will get there. But at the moment, he's not at his best. There is actually one more email on what's going on. It's from Brian, and it's picked up on the point that none of us have actually noticed. And it's just one line, his email. It said it must be the socks. So there you go.
Right. Well, listen, that is cutting edge, mate, if ever I've heard it. Let's move on.
Welling.
Yeah.
Welling. They got a decent manager, we think, with Danny Bloor. They got him from Eastbourne Borough. Looked a good appointment. Then they went and lost the first four games to prove us wrong. Have won the last two, which ominously it could be said. But then we have beaten them in the last four meetings. What does Nobby do? Does he make changes from Monday? He looked like the way he looked in that post-match interview. He's possibly considering it again. More changes.
I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing someone like Bobby Dunn come in for me. I think Bobby has been a little bit underutilized. You know, to be honest, I can't really have an opinion on him because he's not really been able to feature much. Apart from his cross for the winning goal at Havant, which was a great cross. We all agreed on that. I've not really seen him much, and I'd like to see him feature potentially as an option.
Yes, Jacob.
But because of our injury issues, though, there's not. When we talk about changes, I mean, I don't know what we can particularly do apart from the obvious one, which is bring Sean Jeffers in. Apart from him, there's not much else, especially with the defence. We can change players around, bring Carlisle back in, I guess. But otherwise, the options aren't particularly there at the moment, I wouldn't say. I mean, of course, we also Dan Barry injured? He came on at half time. We don't know what's going on with that. Is that a knock? So it could be enforced.
Well, you mentioned earlier, Jake, about Karen Wiltshire, Zane Banton, and now you mentioned as well Dan Barry. The question's not put in the post-match interview. Nobby's not great at talking about games. Get him talking about the interview, the injuries then. Bring us up to date on those. None of us have got a clue if Barry went off injured Saturday or if it was tactical. We took a centre half off and put a centre half on when we're 2-0 down. Well, that helped us a lot. You know, come on, ask the questions. Nobby maybe is a bit more comfortable talking about things like that and bring us all up to date what's happening with the injuries because we don't know. People are paying their money and they're not being kept up to date what's going on. But yeah, you're right. The only two attacking options we got are Sean Jeffers and Bobby Dunn. As far as I see, there's nothing else in the squad with Zane out injured, waiting to come through.
If we do make a signing this week, I suppose the question is, will they go straight into the team potentially, depending who that player is and what position they are? If that happens, we have to say as we record this. But otherwise, the options are a bit limited. And always for me, it's not necessarily about the changes we have to make to the team, but it's about getting the players actually fired up and wanting to go out there and get them going.
It's a change of mentality, isn't it? As much as it is a change of personnel, isn't it? And I think that's absolutely key, fellas. You can bring in whoever you can bring in all these players, but I think they've got to have the driver. They've got to have they've got to have the will to want to change the team at the minute because it is so monotonous and it's so slow and it's predictable. You know, we can play across, and as you said, Tav, there have been teams this season who are happy to let us have the ball because they'll just sit on and they'll sit in, and we can't break them down because we haven't got the players or the tactics to do that.
But back at Havant, I think a lot of it we did look so much better going forward. A lot of it I think was on the break, but it was done at speed.
Yeah,
which is why are we not seeing it in other games? Why did we just do it in that one game? Take Weymouth out of the equation, first game of the season. We haven't done it since Havant. We've lost 3 on the spin since then. Why? What was the thinking then? We're going to do it that way today, but we're not doing it the other games. Bizarre, isn't it?
I agree. And I think, interestingly, you know, last season when we went down to Welling, won 3-0 at Parkview Road, that was the first game for me all day. But it felt like Nobby is the man we need to appoint. You know, with the football, defensively, we had a few issues, but going forward, we looked so exciting. We were cutting Welling apart at times, and it was absolutely brilliant. And it'll be really interesting to see a comparison, 11 months on, how we look now down there, because I don't get it myself. The comparisons are really quite stark to at times last season. We talk about, the possession football. Sometimes it's a bit. It lets teams sit in against us. But we saw last season, we had passing football. We still created chances, though, didn't we? We scored goals a lot of last season. But it's not really happening this season for whatever reason.
One supporter said when I was leaving the ground on Monday, he said, the way we're playing at the moment now is the way we did under Ian Anton, which isn't totally fair. Something went wrong, as we know, off the pitch last season, and we will get to the bottom of it one day. Ian's may come back on the podcast. He enjoyed himself so much last time, so we may be able to interview him question him about one or two things, what changed at the park. But pretty much during Ian's reign, we were an attack-minded side, and we're not seeing it now. So I don't think it's a fair comparison. We haven't seen this side really try and attack yet, and if Nobby's to get out of this mess we're in, well, not mess, that's too much, too strong at the moment, position we're in, then as we keep saying today, it is going to take some tinkering with the way we play.
But don't forget, boys, we're only sort of 5 or 6 games in. You know, let's not press the panic button just yet.
No.
You know, there's no denying the fact it's poor to watch. It's poor football. It's really, really poor football in relation to the players we have and the promise we had at the start of the season. I think that's fair to say. We're not a bad side. Someone actually said to me, one of my friends said to me on Monday, he wonders whether Nobby's trying to be too clever about it, whether he's trying to sort of not second guess himself, but you know, he's trying to get out of the players something that isn't in there. Because don't forget, he's, you know, a Football League professional of some 500 games. You know, these players aren't that anywhere near that. So maybe he is trying too hard. But the fact of the matter is that's up to him to decipher the code, isn't it? You know, we can get more players in, but he might have the same problem. So look, let's not press the panic button just yet. I wasn't as sort of downbeat as some were on the terraces on Monday, but it certainly wasn't great.
Well, to make you feel better, Lee, I've got this shirt on quite deliberately. The 82-83 season, we started it superbly. After 4 games, we were still on -2 points, having had 2 points deducted, and lost the first 4 games.
Looks a bit pasty, that, Tabs. You can be giving that a good old wash, mate, have you?
It's just about as bad a state as I am, really. So, you know, there you go. Right, should we do some predictions?
Yeah,
yes, Welling United.
Everyone loves our predictions, right? Because they are so spot on.
Well, there's a danger of one of us getting one soon. Go on then, Lee. You go for Welling, then Dover next Tuesday, because we haven't mentioned Dover much, really.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to go quite cautious. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw at Welling, I've got to say.
And what about Tuesday? Dover at home?
Have we got
a
game next Tuesday?
Yes.
Oh,
I think so, haven't we?
That's new.
Haven't we?
That's news to me. I think you are correct. Oh God, do we have to talk about them as well?
Don't have to.
Welling, I'll go 2-1 Saints.
Yeah, say it again. Say the line, Jake.
2-1 Saints.
2-1 Saints. Right, okay. And Dover?
I'm going to go for a draw again. I think something needs to sort of, just because of look, it's just the mindset, isn't it? There is this a bit of not a rot is the word. We're quite stagnant at the minute, and unless something just kicks in, I hope I'm wrong. God's honest, I hope I'm wrong, and we absolutely tear them a new one. But at the minute, it's quite mundane, and I can't see us getting anything other than a draw.
What, 1-1 again, or are you going for a bit more?
I want to go sort of a cheeky little 2-2.
Dover are actually my tip to go down this season, but there you go. Jake, you going for what, Tuesday? A game you know nothing about?
I'll go 1-0 City. I think Dover. Okay. They've not had a great start, a bit like us actually. They've had quite a tumultuous summer as well. They had players signing and then leaving about a week afterwards. Great. But it's going to be difficult. Okay. But these 2 games, well, we hinted at earlier, we're now coming to a period where there are games that you've got to be looking at for at least decent results, be those a point in each or 3 points. And if you come out of these next 2 games with I'd say you've got to be looking for 3 points at least, haven't you, from the next 2? If not, that pressure continues to build, doesn't it?
Well, we're not getting the points on Saturday, we're going down to a 3-0 defeat, but then we're going to win 4-0 on Tuesday.
That's the spirit, Dave. Love it.
There you go.
Yeah.
You've heard it here first.
So we end up 3 points better off, and we're with a plus goal difference. So there you go. It's win-win-win, isn't it?
Happy days.
You
I
should be in
think.
charge, mate. Yeah, you should. Yeah, Tav's in. That's what I say.
Yeah.
There you go.
Good.
Right,
Well,
are we done?
I think we
so.
are. I think we are. I don't know
Oh,
about you,
good.
but I'm yeah. But listen, let's not push the panic button just yet, boys. I think it's
No.
still early days, but it does need to improve.
Absolutely. Well,
I
on that
think
note,
we'll
I
see
think
you probably. We'll see him Wednesday next week, I guess, won't we? Because of a Tuesday game.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
If you want to share your opinions, like everyone that's been emailed Dave, you can email us. The emails in the description, or you can send us a tweet on the at Podful of Saints on Twitter. And I think with that, I think we'll see you again next week. Come on, you Saints. Goodbye, everyone.